You know what? Maybe my true calling in life is just ranking men. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So we have ranked our fair share of men on this channel. We've done all of the Kens from the Barbie movies, we've done all of the princes from the animated Disney movies, and now that I say those two out loud, I realize we haven't really done enough, which is why we're here today. I felt like it was about time that we rank the remade live-action Disney princes. And the fact that the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid just recently went up on Disney Plus like a week or so ago, I feel like just further goes to show why this video is necessary. So of course, Disney has quite the catalog of live-action movies, but I just wanted to stress the fact that we're only going to be covering the remakes today. And we are going to be sticking to the official Disney princess lineup just like we did last time, and so that leaves us with 6 boys that we need to cover today. And I know Disney has recently announced a live action Tangled, and we also have Snow White on the way, and I'm sure many more live action remakes to come since they keep making money. But I wanted to make this video now, so we're doing it now. Before we jump right into this list though, I wanted to say a quick thank you to today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. If you're not familiar, Skillshare is an online learning platform that offers thousands of inspiring and creative classes. It's a great place to learn something new, get inspired, and actually put what you've learned to use. It offers a community of creatives and teachers that support and share the same goal as you. And there are so many different topics to choose from, like photography, graphic design, productivity, or if you're looking for something that's more career focused, you can even learn how to start your own business with their entrepreneurship and freelance classes. I joined Skillshare back in 2020, and so it's been 3 years now. The first class I ever took was on editing with Premiere Pro, and I feel like I have come so far since then. I'm sure you guys can tell. The productivity classes that Skillshare offers are also really interesting to me. There's this one called Productivity for Creatives that I'm definitely interested in, so I think I will be taking that one next. And I'm currently taking a class on reconnecting with my inner creative. As a content creator, I really value anything that can help me get my creative juices flowing. So I'm taking the Everyone is a Creative 5 exercises to reconnect with your inner creativity taught by Allison Kohler. I'm creating a visual journal as a part of this class, and so that is the Violetta and Leon page that I'm working on there as a way to inspire me with my Violetta and Leon love story that I'm working on. And I feel like this exercise really helped with making me feel more positive thoughts in regards to this ship, because oftentimes when I'm working on them, I just want to gouge my eyes out. So if you want to unlock your creativity and learn something new, the first 1,000 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So once again, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for checking them out, because I haven't done a sponsorship in a while, but every time I do them, you guys are just so supportive and it really means a lot. So thank you. All right, so with all that being said, I'm very excited, and so let's just jump right in to this list. Okay, so I really struggled with deciding between these last 2 guys on the list because I personally feel like they both just don't really compare to the rest of the men that we're going to talk about today, but nonetheless, at number 6, we have Honghui from Mulan. Now, if you haven't watched the live-action remake of Mulan in a hot minute, you might be thinking, who the heck is Honghui? Or at least that's what I was thinking going into this video. I was like, I don't even remember there being a love interest in this movie, but I guess I'll rewatch it just to make sure, and then I was like very surprised by his existence. In case you're not caught up, the filmmakers decided to replace Shang in this reimagining because they felt like their relationship was inappropriate due to their improper power balance, as Shang was Mulan's commander. However, I personally fundamentally disagree with that being the case, because yes, it would be a completely different story if Shang ever used his position of power over Mulan to win over her affections or to pressure her in any way, but that was not the case. Nothing even remotely romantic happened between the two of them until after the war was over, once he was no longer her commander and there was no position of power. And so I just don't agree in the fact that their relationship is inappropriate, because it's not. But I'm getting off track. We're not here to talk about Shang and their love story and how I personally think it's superior. We're here to talk about Honghui. So he is one of Mulan's comrades in the army, and they go on to create a decent friendship throughout the film. I found him to be very kind, honorable, and he's also a very skilled fighter. He really puts others ahead of himself and makes numerous sacrifices throughout the movie. Like when the avalanche is approaching, he goes back to save one of their friends to the point where he himself gets caught and Mulan then has to save him. He also speaks up in her defense when she comes back to warn them about the enemy army and nobody's really believing her. And he sacrifices himself again near the end so that Mulan can go and save the emperor. I'd say the only real quote-unquote intimate scene we got between the two of them was that moment that they shared on the bridge near the end of the movie. But at that point in the movie, we had already gotten the moment between Mulan and the witch where she died in her arms and the chemistry was just undeniable. And so from that point on, I was pretty sold on Mulan and the witch being the true love story here, that honestly anything that were to happen between Honghui and Mulan after that, I just didn't really care that much for. If you like him though, I definitely understand why. Like I said, he's got a lot of great qualities, but for me personally, he's no Shang, and he doesn't even really compare as far as I'm concerned. And overall, I personally found him to be a bit of a forgettable character, but that's just my opinion, but that's why he is at number 6. So up next, this video got me to do something that not even Disney itself could get me me to do, which is watch Maleficent 2. And so at number 5, we have Prince Philip from the Maleficent series. So for those of you who don't know, they did replace the actor who played Philip in the second movie. I think it was due to scheduling conflicts. And at first I was a little bit disappointed by this because I did really like the actor in the first movie. And we honestly didn't even really get to see much of him in that first movie. And so I was intrigued on seeing more of him, and then he wasn't even there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on first movie Philip first. I honestly found this character to be so adorable. We only see him a handful of times, first when they meet in the forest, which is just such a cute scene. I mean, it doesn't really compare much to the animated counterparts, like the forest interactions between Philip and Aurora in Sleeping Beauty are just top tier, but I did still find the moment in this film adorable as well. And then Maleficent tries to use him in the end of the movie to kiss Aurora to wake her in hopes that he is her true love. And I really like how he's just like, listen, I only met this girl once, like I'm not really too sure about this, I don't think it's gonna work. And I'm just like, I really respected him for that. I saw that as being a reflection of his character and that he's a good person, and also it just made for a funny moment. And then like I said, the actor is replaced in the second movie, which takes place 5 years in the future. And to be honest, I didn't really like this Philip at all at first, but then he really grew on me throughout the movie. In the beginning, I found him to be a lot colder and more sophisticated and almost standoffish in this movie in comparison to the first one. But then as the story went on, I felt like we really got to see how thoughtful and kind he was, just like Aurora described him to be. And I honestly think that that standoffish vibe that I got at the beginning of this movie was just the actor's way of showing the maturity of this character and how far he has come since the previous movie. He's also just such a great partner to Aurora, like you can just tell how much he loves her. He's always putting her best interest first. And when his mother is trying to get her to conform to their beliefs, he stresses how much he doesn't want her to change and that he loves her for who she is, which is that girl that he initially met in the forest. Which was a moment that I really liked because it almost gave me like Ben and Mal vibes from Descendants, especially Descendants 2. And then I also couldn't talk about him without mentioning the moment where he sneaks in to see her on their wedding day. So adorable, and it just really made me love these two. And he was also just a genuinely good guy, which we saw when he was given the opportunity to kill a fae, which was the type of fairy that Maleficent was, but he spared his life because he was like, nope, not gonna kill him, because we all deserve to live in this world in harmony, which is great. But as much as I liked this man, I just personally felt like we didn't get enough development or depth to his character like we do to some of the other guys on this list. And so with that being said, let's move on to number 4. So now I feel like we're at the part of this list where we go from like the guys that I'm kind of indifferent towards to the guys that like I actively enjoy. So that's fun. And fans of this channel will know that the one that we have up next is kind of a big deal for me to like speak highly of, because at number 4 we have the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. So I feel like I've been very vocal in the past towards my distaste for Disney's animated version of the Beast, mainly just because I felt like he didn't get enough character development. Like, we're supposed to believe that love changed him into a better man, but I personally feel like we didn't really get to see much of that change. But in this reimagining, I found that to not be the case at all, which is something that I do really like about these live action remakes. Because yes, there are going to be instances where they miss the mark, but then we have instances like the Beast, where they took a character that needed some work and actually improved them without jeopardizing what made the original character so special. But in all fairness, we should cover everything. And so yes, in the beginning of this movie, the Beast was not a good person. He was selfish and unkind, and apparently he also taxed the city relentlessly just so that he could get what he wanted. He only invited people that fit into his own beauty standards to his gatherings, and he was described as having no love in his heart. And when an old woman came to his home seeking shelter in the storm, he turned her away because he thought she was ugly. Which is another improvement that this retelling made from the original movie, which was that they made sure that there was absolutely no gray area in regards to how old he was when this instance took place. In this telling, he was old enough to invite a quote-unquote stranger inside, and the fact that he didn't due to her appearance just goes to show that he did really need an adjustment. So then we get to when Belle and her dad come onto the scene, where he imprisons her dad for stealing a flower. So clearly he still can't control his anger. He makes her starve for not wanting to eat with the person that literally imprisoned her, and he has an episode when he catches her in the West Wing. But everything changes once he saves her from the wolves. He selflessly risks his own life to save her and even gets injured in the process. This is also when we come to find out a little bit more about his childhood and how he came to be the cruel person that he was in the beginning of the movie. His mother died when he was very young, which left only his dad to be a role model for him, and Mrs. Potts goes on to explain that he even twisted him up to make him just as bad as he was. And she also admits that nobody stepped in, like everybody saw the damage that his dad was doing to him and didn't help him, which suggests to me that that made his upbringing extremely isolating. And I'm not saying this to excuse his behavior in the beginning of the film, but more so to understand where it's coming from better and see how how change is possible for him. This is also when we find out that he shares Belle's love for literature and knows Shakespeare, which makes sense when you think about how isolating his childhood was, like books were probably his only escape. And he does apologize for the way that he treated her father and goes on to give her the opportunity to find out firsthand what happened to her mother, which I think is just a gift that is unmatched. He gives Belle her freedom to save her dad without a second thought and gives her his magic mirror, even though the repercussions of this would be him and the rest of the castle being trapped forever. There's also the aspect of Evermore, which I personally think is one of the greatest songs in existence, and like, he gave that to us. And so for that, I am eternally grateful. I also wrote down that he can jump real far, which is impressive to me. Like at the end of this movie, he's jumping from roof to roof on his castle, like in the winter time, in the middle of the night. Like that's gotta count for something. And then of course there's the fact that he did spare Gaston's life in the end, even though he didn't deserve it, and that he can still growl, even as a man. I find that neat. And so yeah, that's the Beast. This version of him really won me over, and so that's why he's number 4. Up next, we have the People's Princess, which is Kit from Cinderella. I just feel like this man is so wholesome and perfect, and I really hope that I do him justice. So as I'm sure you probably know if you're still watching this video, Kit and Ella meet for the first time while out riding. He saves her after her horse gets spooked, and then it results in one of the best meet-cutes in like cinematic history. This is also when he decides to keep the fact that he is the prince a secret, which I guess you could argue makes him untrustworthy, maybe. But I feel like it's safe to say that that's not the case with Kit, and that he just wanted to be seen for who he was and not like this title that he has no control over. And come on, like this scene just really won me over. Like he's got the most amazing eyes. He immediately agrees not to hunt the stag that they've literally come to hunt just because she asks him to. And I also love when he freaks out about almost getting outed to her as the prince, and he's just like, it's Kit, it's Kit. It's Kit. And then you have his smile. Like you just can't deny how enchanting this man is in this scene, and honestly in this entire movie. Like I should really make an edit of him to that song, and you know what? Now that I'm in my editing era, maybe I will. And then I just love how he immediately goes and talks to his dad about meeting Ella and just how smitten he is right off the bat, and doesn't even care about the fact that she's not royalty. He's just like, you know what? I'm gonna marry that girl on the horse, I think. I like that one. She's good and honest. And I know this based off of one meeting. And I'm sure people argue against that and how they can't possibly be in love just based off of one meeting. But sometimes it's fun to just have like your fairy tale movie where they practically fall in love at first sight. Like it's romantic. And that's the other thing about this retelling, right? Which is that they gave them more of a connection than just that one night that they shared at the ball. And so we saw her for who she truly was at first, and then that was the girl that he fell in love with. But speaking of, I do have to talk more about the ball, because I feel like this retelling just took that whole moment to another level. I love how they have him stutter and asking her to dance, and his "believe me, they're all looking at you" line is just top tier. And then he goes on to come clean about lying right away. I mean, it would have been a bit hard for him to continue the lie at this point, but still, I feel like that wasn't an important moment. And then this dude like owns a secret garden and a swing. Like what's not to love? And I think the fact that he doesn't give up in trying to find her just goes to show how determined he is. The minute she leaves, he's running after her, and he honestly doesn't stop running until the end of the movie. He goes as far as dressing up as one of the guards and going on the search with them, which I feel like just goes to show what type of character he has. And I know I've really been focusing on specific scenes here, but that's just because they're all so good. And so lastly, I just had to highlight that ending scene in their living room. It's just so magical, and I love the fact that he knows it's her right away, and then to follow that up with their wedding scene is just so perfect. And that line of like, I'm ready for anything as long as it's with you. Like I've seen this movie so many times and yet it still made me cry. But that could also be because I'm somehow still in the honeymoon phase a year into my relationship. So yeah, that's Kit. He's great. We love him. Moving on. So I must admit that it wasn't until this very moment that I made the decision as to who was going to be number 1 and number 2 on this list. I just really couldn't decide between these two, and I'm honestly still doubting my choice, so I'd really appreciate your guys' validation in the comments. So at number 2, we have Aladdin. Now this was very hard for me to put him at number 2 because I do think that this remake has been my favorite one to date. But we're not talking about the movies here, we're talking about the boys, and I think in this case he has been beat, even though it does pain me a bit to say that. I love Aladdin, I love Mina, we actually went to the same university, so me and him are like this. And I say that while actively ignoring the post he made about Little Mermaid on Twitter that caused him to delete his account. Let's just say that it's a good thing that we're talking about the characters here and not the actors. So we have Aladdin, he's an attractive guy, he's got a pet monkey, he can do like acrobatic moves amongst buildings, which is very impressive to me as we've previously covered with the Beast. He can sing, he can dance with the help of some magic, and yes, some could argue that he is a little bit of a pathological liar, but I know that at his core, he is a caring and kind person. He protects Jasmine when she gets caught stealing, even though he doesn't even know her, protects some of the children when they get scared by some of the prince's horses, and he's also very smart and quick-witted. Like, he figures out that Jasmine is from the palace almost immediately, and he's able to also sneak into the palace like it's nothing. And I feel like this is another case where they took the initial story and made it better, especially in regards to the whole lying situation, because this time around they had Jasmine lie to him first. Aladdin guesses that she's the handmaiden to the princess, and she just goes along with it. And this is quite different to the Kit scenario where he lied, but then the minute that she saw him in the palace, he came clean about it. Jasmine actually takes her lie pretty far, and he actually doesn't even end up finding out through Jasmine that she was lying, but through Jafar instead. And obviously I know that Aladdin took his lie way farther than she did, and they both had their various different reasons for lying to begin with, and there's also the fact that Aladdin didn't come clean about his lie when he was easily given the opportunity to. But my point is that I feel like adding that element in really helped with their relationship and just Aladdin's character overall. Like, he doesn't seem as much of a bad guy when, like, she's lying to. I'm also a little bit biased, but these two are also my favorite ship, and so he's got that going for him as well. And I also just feel like he's a really strong, brave, and just stand-up guy, minus the whole lying situation. Like, he sneaks into the palace just to return the bracelet that Abu stole from her. He goes back after Jafar steals the lamp, even though he no longer has the power of the genie on his side. Doesn't take the Sultan up on repaying him after he helps defeat Jafar, and he owns up to everything that he's done. And he goes on to keep his promise of setting the genie free. Which, speaking of, I just love his friendship with the genie. It's one of my favorite parts of this film, and I feel like it's another thing that just really goes to show what great of a character he is. And so that's why he's number 2. I love Aladdin. I love this movie. I hope we do get that sequel that is rumored, because I will be sat and ready to watch. But yes, with all that being said, it's time to move on to our number 1 prince. So I'm sure you've all guessed it, but yes, number 1 is Eric from The Little Mermaid. Now, the fact that this man made this much of an impact on me, I just feel like speaks volumes. Because honestly, I'm not even really that big of an Eric fan. Like, in the animated movie, I don't even really care that much for him, which I have talked about before in my Prince video. And it's funny because you could argue that, like, fundamentally, they really didn't change this character that much, but I was still just so won over by him. So he's a talented sailor, and he has a very strong adventurer spirit. All he really wants is to explore and learn more about the world, which is something that I really admire. He can also sing and dance as well. He's a collector and cares about history and artifacts. I also love how much he cares for animals, which, like, is a really important quality when at the end of the movie you're going to be marrying a fish. But we also saw him stop his men from harpooning the dolphins, and then when the ship is on fire, he, like, jumps across it to save his dog Max. He does have a bit of Kit vibes, I feel like, in the fact that he is so determined to find Ariel. And then when he comes to find out that she is half fish, he doesn't even bat an eye at that fact, and he still loves her regardless. Which I personally feel like is a big deal, because, like, if I found out that Josh was half fish, I feel like I would definitely have a moment where I'm like, whoa. And then, like, I would continue loving him, obviously, but there would still be a moment where I pause. Where Eric, he didn't have one moment. He was like, all right, time to go save her life. Like, how could you not love that? He's also just so kind, caring, and wholesome. He lets her stay in the castle for as long as she needs to, even though he thinks that she's not even the one. Like, excuse me? The Beast would never. I also love the moment where he gives her his Little Mermaid artifact without a second thought. And there was just something about him in this movie that I personally feel like gave his character more dimension. Maybe it was the fact that we got a little bit more of his backstory, like finding out that he was adopted from a shipwreck. And I feel like they were able to show his wants and desires better in this movie. He didn't really care as much about getting married and settling down. He just wanted to travel and see the world. But there is one thing that might seem a little bit minuscule to others, but that I was personally very disappointed by in this movie. So if you'll recall, in the animated version, at the end of the movie, Eric is actually the one that defeats Ursula by guiding the ship into her to impale her. And I expressed that in my Prince video, this was actually what made me like him as a character. Animated Eric honestly didn't really do that much for me until he, like, saved the day. And so I was like, well, I can't not like him now. Like, he saved everybody. So good job, Eric. So when I watched this movie for the first time, I was kind of dreading that part because it was one of my favorite aspects of the original. And I could just tell by the way that this movie was going that they were going to give that moment to Ariel to have, like, their big girl power, I can save myself sort of ending, which is fine. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit sick of the media's constant need to include moments like this to prove that a character is strong. And that's why it bugged me that they did that here, because I felt like they did already showcase that throughout this movie. There are so many other great moments where we get to see how strong and independent Ariel is. And so yes, it was still good that he did still jump in the water and help Ariel even when he was defenseless and way out of his league. And I respect them for not wanting to have the man save her, and honestly for giving Eric a better character overall in this retelling, and so that whole moment wasn't really missed too much to like the average viewer. But taking that away from him, I just felt like made him look a bit useless in the whole like ending moment. But I don't want that to take away from Eric, because like I said, I do love him. There's a reason why he is number one on this list. It was also nice to see him get a song in this movie. Wild Uncharted Waters is a fun little Princey solo moment. I mean, it's no Evermore, but still, I feel like it deserves credit. And so yes, that's Prince Eric. That's why he's my number one, but I want to know who your number one Disney live action remake prince is, so please leave that in the comments down below. I feel like there were so many that I didn't even get to talk about on this list that I also would have loved to talk about, like Ben from Descendants, Edward and Robert from Enchanted, Chris Pine's character in Princess Diaries 2. I'm so sorry I forget his name, but I love him so much. And so yeah, leave those ones in the comments down below just so I can fangirl with all of you. I would love that very much. Anyways, Cater Tots, that is all I have to say for today. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. I feel like that was a really quick jump into my outro, so I apologize if anyone else was jarred by that, but don't worry. Apparently I still have more to say. No, I really enjoyed making this video. I love doing ones that are a bit different. I don't really talk about Disney that often, but I do love it. You know, Kate loves Disney. Like, I do stick to my roots. Some part of her is still here, still in here, don't worry. And so yeah, I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, wherever you are, and yeah. That's all from me. I love how I've now gone on to create like another outro after my outro, because apparently one just isn't enough. Anyways, bye guys. I love you.